Okay.
Good morning, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and I'm here this morning with my good buddy Zoolander, and we're going to talk about a piece of equipment called the Chambon. Now, the only piece of equipment that we use other than side reins at times that I use sometimes on very hollow-backed horses, very high-backed horses, is a Chambon. And what a Chambon does, I'm going to show you when I hook it up in a moment, is it hooks here, hooks underneath the girth, and it simply goes through a line here and down to the horse's mouth. All it does is put a little pressure on the top of the pole, so what it does is it asks the horse simply to stretch down. So a lot of these horses, I've been getting a lot of emails from people who are working with saddlebred horses and trying to retrain them and asking about what we do with these extremely hollow-backed horses. Because some of them, if horses have been going around bracing against the bridle, for years and years, they're probably going to want to stay that way because it's so ingrained in their minds. They've never been in a place that's comfortable, so they don't know anything else. And of course, that can become self-perpetuating in itself. Once the horse's back comes up, it locks its back down, then the back tends to get sore, then it feels the pain in its back, and it thinks the rider's looking for where that's coming from. So a lot of horses that spook, this is exactly their problem. They're in pain all the time, so they're looking for what's causing them the pain. So with the Chambon, all it simply does is put a little pressure on the pole, so as the horse comes up and throws its head up, it will eventually want to move away from that and will want to stretch down into the contact. So once again, the danger signs are you would never want to put a Chambon on so tight. I'm going to put it on now so you can see how it fitted. The rein should be fitted so that, once again, we're never trying to force the head into a position. So just standing here, when I hook these lines on, they should not force the horse's head to come down. He should still be able to basically stand here normally as he's been doing like that. And I did not put any pressure to try to pull his pole down or anything like that. I just put it on so that he could feel the contact there. If he throws his head any higher than that, he's going to feel the contact, and it's going to make him want to stretch down a little bit. So when you're starting horses with this at home, you want to be sure that you keep it extremely, extremely loose to start with, so that there's no pressure at all until he just gets used to the rigs, and then you would just slowly, slowly take contact with it to be sure, because some horses, when they feel pressure on their pole, will have a tendency to want to go up against it or can react very strongly to it. So always start this extremely long when you're first starting. Now this horse has done this once before, so I already know that he's going to be okay with it where it is now. Otherwise I would even have it looser than this. But as you can see, it's not forcing him into any kind of frame. Now especially with this horse, like this horse, he had been broken back here in the neck. You hear us talking about that, where they've been over-flexed at the third vertebrae. So when you see horses' necks that go up like that and then they flatten out, and there's almost a break back here in the neck and not here, that's a horse who has been forced against the hand in tight side reins or very stiff bridles. And what's actually happened is the ligaments in here have become stretched out between two of the vertebrae, and the vertebrae become separated. Over time, we can heal that. They will shrink back up, and you hear us talk about this in lots of videos. But this is a good way because a lot of horses that are extremely broken, as well as the ones that are so high, as soon as you put side reins on, they just break in the neck and they hang over. This horse is quite like that. So we'll stand back for a minute. We'll watch what's going to happen. If you just don't stop the camera, just step back. There we go, like that, until you're outside my circle there. There we go. And I'm just going to let him start off in the walk at this. And so what we'll see with the Chambon is the Chambon doesn't restrict the head and neck backwards. It just encourages the horse to stretch down and out. Now there's another device that often comes as part of a Chambon called a degogue. The degogue, the idea, is someone's idea to try to improve upon this, and it has another line that goes back to the horse's chest and pins the horse's head over. So degogue, very bad, Chambon, good. So when you're going out to buy one of these, don't buy the combination Chambon degogue because the lines are all too long on them. They don't work well unless you're actually using that as a degogue. And we don't want to use the degogue, once again, because it breaks the horse's head over. So the danger thing here, if you ever see the horse coming behind the bridle, you can put these so tight that the horse will flip its head over this way. We don't want that to happen either. We want him going out and down. So I'm just letting him establish a little contact with this at the walk before I start him into the trot. And trot. Now, normally I do a little more walk work, but since we have limited video space here, I'm going to just go ahead and work him into the trot. I'm just letting him establish some rhythm. So what will happen is that as he throws his head up, he'll feel that little contact with his pole up there, and he'll want to stretch away from it, like that. So as you can see, unlike the side reins, they don't pull the head back, which is once again, what we want to avoid, especially with horses that have been broken in the neck. And we let him get used to it. So once I'm sure that the horse isn't going to overreact to this, I put this on exceedingly loose this morning so you guys can see. So this is really taking any contact there, not giving up. Once we go into canter, I just bring him right back to a trot again. And boom. So once I see that he's not going to overreact, then I can add a little more, shorten the line a little bit, and begin to take a little more contact. Now notice that I'm undoing these in order to tighten it, just to be sure I don't get in trouble here. Just that. Oh. So once I've shortened it, and I'm going to hook it back on. And some of these things have better systems for shortening them than this one does. I suggest there's one that has a strap here that makes it much easier to be able to make your adjustments. I suggest you buy that type. So once I know he's not going to freak out about the little contact there, then I'm just going to tighten it up, and as we see, watch what happens when he throws his head. He feels that little contact there, but it's not pulling him over this way. He just feels a little pull pressure. Of course, that's very good, and when you hear your horse blowing out like that, that tells you he's clearing his channels, his airways, so to speak. Part of the relaxing process. Breathe more easily. Also, my lunging technique, whenever he's a little hollow, I'm going to bring him a little shoulder forward on the circle, which I've shown you folks before. And then as soon as he relaxes, I'm going to let him back out again. So if the head comes back up, I'm going to keep him just a little bit shoulder forward. Remember, shoulder in is our most important tool that we have in the rider's toolbox for reshaping the horse. So I keep him a little bit shoulder forward as I keep him swinging through. That shoulder forward position will get him to activate that inside hind leg just a little bit more. Notice that I'm never pulling on the rein, no matter what he does. I'm never yanking on the rein or doing any kind of punishment to his mouth. As you can see, it isn't instantaneous, and that's also what I want you guys to see. If you're not going to put this on and instantly pull his head down. It's something he's going to get used to over a few days, and as you slowly tighten it, we'll get a better and better stretch out of it. Notice I'm keeping on a fairly small circle so I control that shoulder. And you reach underneath, and then as he stretches, I keep him in the bigger circle again. So his reward is always the bigger circle. When I have a horse that's not doing what I want or acting up, I'm never going to jerk on the rein. As I said, I'm just going to use a smaller circle to help me control it, or to engage his hind end a little more. And once I get the stretch that I want, then I'm going to let him back out. Right there, just a little bit shoulder forward till he starts to yield a little more. Then I let him back out in the larger circle. Now notice how loose that Chambon gets. As soon as he puts his head down at all, it loosens right up. There's nothing pulling on him. It's quite comfortable for him. There we go. How he's starting to relax now, how it's just encouraging him to stretch the neck out forward, but without any curling back of the neck. Notice how I always keep the horse working to the end of the line here, so I always keep contact. Direct lunging or any kind of groundwork is really just riding from the ground when it's done well, so that we're working for control instead of just to wear the horse out. A lot of people who don't understand lunging are using lunging only to wear their horse out, but they're not taking advantage of what they could be doing, which is getting the horse to reshape itself at the same time and build the strength and muscles that we need in order to carry the rider. There we go. Like that. So you see, he gets a little resistive like that. Feels it. I'm going to bring him on a little smaller circle again. Just settle. Gets the hindquarters back underneath him again. Then as he starts to stretch, I let him back out into a larger circle again. We want to be working on a 20-meter circle lunging generally, but sometimes we have to use a little smaller circle to help us discipline the horse or to get them to engage just a little bit more. There's what we want, the horse just stretching forward into that contact, neck as long as it will go, back engaged, without coming behind the vertical in the trot. If he canters on those things like that, I don't make a big deal of. I never jerk on the horse's mouth. I let him canter a little bit and let him come back again. So we don't make a big deal of every little thing the horse does. But he got a little hollow again there, so I'm going to bring him back on the small circle. Getting to move underneath himself, getting him to engage once again, and then we're back into the stretch. There. Like that. And that's where we'd like it to be. Now notice as he's trotting here, this is a good working trot for this horse. Look at the back end of the horse, people. So I tell you all the time, don't look at the front end, obviously look at it occasionally, but the back end is important. Look how beautiful the back end is now moving, how the hocks are moving a circular motion. The horse is in a working trot. One of the things that we can clearly see is the hock moving in a perfect round circle as the horse is coming underneath itself, relieving the pressure before the hind leg goes out the back, so to speak. So he once again hollowed a little bit, so I brought him on a little smaller circle again, got him to engage once again. And then stretch back into contact. When you're working with horses, it's never anything like you just switch the switch and it's going to stay perfect. It doesn't work that way. We have to keep working with them all the time. Keep correcting them when they do something wrong. Or when they lose the frame, so to speak. There we go. But you can clearly see with this horse how the Chambon does not restrict the horse's movement. Look at how loose it is as we go by there. You can see that it's not holding his head down, it's just encouraging him, especially when he throws his head way up high, puts a little pressure on, and encouraging him to stretch forward and back out again. where can I go? He's trying to spook. There's a tent blowing overhead to me a little bit. So it's also very good because it automatically disciplines as he's trying to throw his head up to spook at this little blowing thing on the side. But without curling it behind the bridle. Once again, as he relaxes, I let him back out on the larger circle. Use the circle to help me get control, so I'm never having to rush him around, I'm never having to jerk on the reins. Obviously, we got to a very nice place there at the end. So once again, remember the warning signs of using this is if you ever see the horse curl its head back under, you know you have the Chambon way too tight. So start with it very, very loose, and don't expect this to happen in one day, especially those of you who are working old saddlebreds. If your horse's back is hollow, it's the other thing I want you to remember. If you really want to be serious about this and you want to correct the problems that your horses have, if its back is swayed, you simply have to do the groundwork until the back comes back up. Now, 2 years ago, I worked with a 27-year-old horse whose back was completely like this, and in about 9 months' time, I brought the horse back, its back up to where it was almost level. So don't think that just because you see a sway-backed horse that it's going to stay that way forever. You can change that if you're willing to do the work and you're patient enough to wait for those muscles to change. Because once again, remember what happens as the horse stretches its neck down, over time, the withers actually pull up between the shoulders and pull the back up. This horse himself was quite hollow back when we first got him. Now his back is almost flat, and we can see it up here, right behind the withers, we see a pushing up of the back right there, and that's what we're really looking for as we develop the horse. So once again, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. We're talking about the Chambon this morning. Once again, remember, Dagogue bad, and when you go out to buy one of these, if you do not buy the one that's a combination Dagogue and Chambon. Buy a Chambon only. The ones with the Dagogue, the idea is the Dagogue comes up here, but it has another strap that goes back here and collects here, which makes the horse's head go over like this and would create many, many more problems. So Chambon good, Dagogue bad. So for all of you with saddlebreds, I used to use these a lot. Now as you get better at doing this, you learn to work in hand and do some of these other things that help us to manipulate the back and begin to get them to stretch into the contact, which can make it go a little faster if you're an expert at this. But if you're not, and you're just beginning this work at home, and you've got a horse that's just going around bracing like this and has been doing that all its life, and you lunge for an hour and nothing happens, he still just stays like in that position, well, that's not going to work, and this is probably a good way to go for you at home, if you don't have enough experience doing work in hand, some of these other things that can help you to change those things. So once again, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. I hope that helps. Thank you very much.